So let's go. So we're going to follow our kind of standard pattern from other previous months. So we're going to kind of cover some of the upcoming events, happening at NetBox Labs and around in the NetBox community. We'll give you a little bit some updates on kind of what's happening in the NetBox world in terms of products, and then we'll get to the crux of these meetings every month, the part that definitely I'm looking forward to every month, which is our guest speakers. We have two guest speakers today. We have Colin and Michael. We'll introduce them a little later on, but some really interesting things. And then a call to action at the end where we'll kind of solicit anybody who's out there who might be interested in presenting, whether it's their use case, their nice piece of tech they've built, or anything else that's relevant to the NetBox community. We'd love to hear your story, so we'll make a call for action for that. I'm just going to see that there's a few chats. So all is good on that front. As usual, I've got, so I'll introduce myself, Richard Boucher. I'm a product manager at NetBox Labs. And with me today to help me with the emceeing is Mark Coleman. So welcome, Mark, as well.
Hello. Nice to see you all again.
So we'll roll right into the events. And Mark, if you can kind of walk us through the upcoming events.
Yep. Thanks, Richard. Okay, so this one, super exciting for me. I've been really involved in this one. This is NetBox Custom Objects. So some of you will have seen that we did a tech preview blog about this in, I think, the beginning of February, and then moved to private preview about maybe a month ago. The response has been huge. Lots and lots of people interested in learning more about this. And we're going to be sharing more on a webinar on May 20th. So this time next week. Custom objects, to give you a sense of what it is kind of what it sounds like. It allows you to create new models in NetBox so that you can model things that perhaps not everybody would want, but that are specific to your organization. It allows you to do this without having to write a plugin. So we'll share more about that next week. Oh, and to register, hit the QR code. Go sign up. And then a whole bunch of events. We are suddenly starting to do so many events that I can't keep track of them. There was a time a little while ago that I think I went to all of the events, but that is no longer possible. So just to give you a high-level overview here, we've got Red Hat Ansible Fest in Boston, May 19th to 20th. Rich Bibby, our colleague, his face is up in the top right, which kind of implies that he's at all of them. He's actually just the pretty face that we use for these slides, but he will be at Red Hat Ansible Fest. I think we've got a talk there. There's a bunch of other things going on, but if you're there, scan the QR code where you'll be able to find a link to our general events page, and then you can go into specific pages for each of these events to figure out how to get in touch with us if you want to have a meeting or whatever. Next up is AutoCon 3. So AutoCon is rapidly becoming the place where network automation gets discussed. We were super happy to collaborate with them couple of years back now, I think, when we donated Net DevOps Days, and we've been supporting them ever since. It's growing every single time, and this time it's in Prague. So if you're into network automation, NetBox, and other things, I think they still have tickets. If you already have a ticket, come and say hello. You can scan the QR code again to get through to the specific page where you can sign up to either get a meeting with us if you want to, or to sign up for our happy hour. So one of the things that we did at AutoCon 2 for the first time in Denver was, I think we called it NetBox and Friends. And essentially it's a whole bunch of people from the conference get together on the Tuesday evening for drinks and food. It's all on us, and it's a nice place to hang out and meet some other people from the NetBox and network automation community. So again, all of that through the QR codes. Then we've got Cisco Live. This is an event that we do a lot of. So we do the EU one, we also do the US one. We're also doing a happy hour here. Again, QR code to sign up for that. Cisco Live is kind of amazing for us because we always show up at Cisco Live and find that there are like 12 talks about NetBox, but we only know about the 2 that we're doing. So huge NetBox crowd there. If you're interested, go check it out. And then the last one is Nanog 94. I think this is something you're going to see us at more often moving forward. So we have done a couple of Nanogs in the past, but I think it's now coming into like our heavy rotation. So Nanog 94, if you're going to be in Denver, again, hit the QR code. I think there's a form in there where you can say that you'd like to meet up, and then that'll introduce you to the people who are going to be there. Richard and I are going to be in person at AutoCon 3. Richard, are you going to be at any of the others?
Nope, that's the only one I'll be at.
All right. So we're going to be both at AutoCon 3. We're actually doing a workshop on NetBox discovery and assurance, which you've heard about in previous community calls and probably on the blog and on all the social medias and everything else. If you got a ticket for that, well done, because that is now thoroughly sold out. So we're looking forward to that one.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
And on that note, I'll just kind of segue to some of the NetBox news. Most of you are probably already aware, but just a quick highlight that NetBox 4.3 came out earlier this month on May 1st. And so another exciting release. I'm not going to walk through all of the new features. There's really a laundry list of them. There's a link at the bottom there to the actual release notes to get the crux of it. But I did want to highlight a few things, at least one in particular, and that's the module type profiles and custom attributes. Because it sounds a little arcane, but this actually has tremendous power in terms of allowing very forward-thinking companies to be able to better model their infrastructure. And this allows you to create module types similar to device types, but a little different than device types in the sense that they allow you to have custom attributes. And so you can make them very specific to the kinds of things they are. So this was originally asked for some of the hyperscalers to do things like GPU modeling and things like that. So now you can create specific module profiles that have the attributes that make sense to them. Like a clock speed on a power supply doesn't really make sense, right? And so this really allows you to finely tune your modeling and be able to have very reproducible modules that with the exact set of attributes that make sense for those components. So we're really excited about that capability. So just wanted to put it out there as if you've struggled with any kind of modeling in this space, then 4.3 is definitely for you. Then there's, like I said, there's a whole slew of other enhancements with 4.3, including some GraphQL enhancements, hierarchical device roles that had been asked quite a bit. It's the idea that, in the past, like if you had routers, for example, or switches, you couldn't have like a top of rack switch versus an access switch versus another type of switch as kind of being hierarchical. Now you can actually all have them live within a hierarchy instead of being independent components. So all exciting stuff. Take a look. As we introduced 4.3, you might have noticed on our blog. So as I kind of move on, we kind of wanted to indicate that NetBox 4.3 fit into a broader set of new capabilities that are part of a growing NetBox ecosystem. And the QR code at the top there, on the top right there, is to the blog post because there was just too many links for me to be able to put this on this slide associated with all of these different components and different parts of the ecosystem that are growing. So Mark already mentioned, the whole discovery capabilities that have been coming out. We've come out with NetBox Assurance to do operational drift detection and management. Diode is a new ingestion service. We've actually released a new version of it that significantly expands on what Diode did in the past. It came out late April, and the latest version of Diode, for example, supports all of the or most of the object types in NetBox, so you're no longer constrained to a limited set. It supports things like custom attributes, so that now you can use that ingestion mechanism to actually use custom attributes for inbound. You can also use them for matching of your kind of ingested data with what's in NetBox. So a lot of great capabilities there. Again, the QR code will send you to the blog that'll have you the links to the more specifics if you're looking to dig into it. You can also reach out to myself and Mark as well, or anybody else on the NetBox Lab team if you're having a hard time finding what you're looking for. But just kind of keep going on the NetBox ecosystem. We came out with NetBox Discovery. It's an open source agent that allows you to do network and device discovery. And it supports things like centralized policy management by using Git repository or version control repositories. It also has integrations with vaults to manage credentials and passwords that you might need to connect to network devices. So definitely something to look at. It works kind of seamlessly with Diode and Assurance in terms of injecting that data or ingesting that data into NetBox. And then further to that, we've been growing, doing a lot of work in the market to build integrations on top of this discovery. So extending that discovery capability to very specific types of data sources and their APIs or whatever mechanisms they provide in terms of publishing their data. And again, integrating that into NetBox through Diode and NetBox Assurance. There's a whole laundry list of these, and there's more coming. We're coming out with roughly about 2 of these a month, and we're planning to keep that cadence going through the rest of the year. So there will be plenty more. We'd love to hear from you, though. If there's something that's not here that's really of high interest to you, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to kind of put it on the list of things to do. Other elements in the ecosystem or the branching plugin. This has been out for a while, but there's been some significant work in terms of resolving some of the issues around performance, some bugs around merging of branches and things like that. So we're continuing the work there to improve that. So those aren't familiar. Branching is all about providing kind of Git style workflows in NetBox so that you can stage changes in a branch as opposed to in your main database, and so they can be reviewed. You can actually collaborate with your team members to make sure that those are the actual changes you want to make. And then once you've determined that that's really what you want to do, then you're able to merge those back into main. So you can be used for a number of use cases, things like planning a change beforehand, but only applying it at the time that you actually make the set of changes, or for review processes and so on and so forth. So really exciting stuff. And then the last one I have here, and the list could have kept on going, but we had to keep it to a certain limit, is the custom objects plugin that Mark talked about. Really exciting stuff. There's a webinar about that next week if you're really kind of curious to get into that. But this is really exciting. This really sits kind of somewhere in between custom fields and plugins in terms of extending the data model. So this is really about extending the data model without needing to get into code. So exciting stuff. If you got use cases around that, I strongly encourage the webinar next week. If you want to read up on it in the meantime, again, the QR code will link you to the blog post that has links to different resources associated with that. So on that, I know that was a kind of a wall of talking to you, but just to give you a sense that it's really exciting. There's a lot happening in the NetBox ecosystem, and there's plenty more to come. So again, feel free to reach out if you need more details on anything on this. We'd love to get into it with you. So on that note, I think we're on to the main event, and maybe pass it to Mark to introduce our first guest speaker.
Yes, absolutely. So our first speaker today is Colin Lacey. As I said, when we show up at Cisco Live, there's always a ton of NetBox content. Colin's over at Cisco, and I think, Colin, I first became aware of your work. You're sharing it on LinkedIn somewhere around doing things with the NetBox Terraform provider, but now you've gone and done even more stuff today, talking about exploring NetBox custom validators, which is one of those areas where I'm always like, I should go learn more about that. And now I don't have to. So take it away, Colin.
Sure, thanks. And actually, kind of true to what you were saying about different things happening at Cisco Live that you might not be knowing about when you get there. I'm putting together a lab, a walk-in lab around NetBox custom validators. So that's what I'm going to be showing today. So can you all see my screen? You should be able to see what looks like VS Code. All right, great. So yeah, this is part of a walk-in lab that's going to be at Cisco Live, where people will be
Colin,
able to.
Actually, I think we're looking at an email.
Looking at an email. Oh, we are. All right. That is the wrong screen. There we go.
Got it.
Now we're looking at the right screen. Looks like VS Code.
Yep.
All right, great. So yeah, this is part of a walk-in lab. So you'll be able to walk in, take the lab in your own time, and walk through a guide that's going to teach you about all the things I'm going to cover, but in much more detail, and get hands-on with it so you can do this yourself. But really what we're going to look at today is custom validators, how you use them, and just some scratch the surface things that you can do with them. So a custom validator, let's look at this one real quick. It's just a Python class. It extends the built-in custom validator class that comes in extras validators in NetBox. So it requires this validate field that'll be called automatically. And when you configure it to work with certain classes within your modules in NetBox, right, it will call them in the order that they're presented right here, right? So here we'll have our prefix validator, our role validator, our description validator. And I'll get into these in just a second, but it's all part of this custom validators block, right? So this is where you declare, here's the validators that I want to run for these different classes. So if we come into NetBox and we go to prefixes, right? I want to add a prefix and I want to do something we probably would never do. I'm going to add one with 127.0.0.1, right? And I should have my debugger running. Let me just make sure. Python debugger, yep. So if we put a debugger running here, when I try to submit this, oh, we hit the role validator first. We'll talk about that in a second. But in theory, there would be, I'm still building this out, so bear with me if there are any things that happen out of order. But we're going to add different, we're going to basically have different errors that could show up depending on what happens in my validators. All right, so come back down here and we'll see, I mentioned the role validator. So we have different validators that we can compose to build a chain of logic around these different classes. So role validator and description validator, those are very simple classes that don't do much, right? This one, role validator, just checks to see, has a role been defined for this thing? Description validator, same thing. Has a description been defined for this thing? And the reason I say this thing is because what's passed into this instance argument here is whatever resource we've configured to validate here, right? So I can use these same validators in an abstract way where it's not specific to the class, here's what I'm validating, right? Instead, I'm looking for certain fields and whether or not they exist or are defined in that class. So that's basic Python. And because I'm keeping it simple and not hard coding, okay, this is specific for a prefix, this is specific for a VLAN, I can use these validators in different ways on different classes, right? So I can use them for composability and really build out a chain of logic. So in this case, right, the error that we saw down here was it needs a role. If we come into VLANs, right, we can get into some pretty complex logic, right? Things like in this one, I'm saying if we have a VLAN assigned to a site and a VLAN with that ID or a VLAN with that name already exists at that site, we're going to throw an error. We're going to say that's not something we want to allow. You can technically do it, right? But you might want to prevent that from happening to prevent confusion, right? So you can get into branching logic. And right here, you can see I'm looking up things in the database. So I'm using the Django ORM, which is extremely well documented. So I'm using the Django ORM to look up things in the database by applying filters to say, all right, this site ID and this VLAN ID, or this site ID and the name of this VLAN that's being created, right? And if it already exists, then I throw an error and we get that nice error message that you saw. We can also prevent deletions. So in this one here, it's the same validate function, right? The same validate method being passed to a class that extends custom validator. So even when we're validating for deletion and we want to check to see, in this case, does a prefix have children, right? Does it have child ranges? Does it have child IPs? If any of those are true, we're not going to be able to delete this prefix, okay? Same class, same method definition, but in this case, instead of applying it in custom validators, we're going to apply it in this block way down here in protection rules. All right. So this is where we would define things that get called on deletion. It follows a different flow in Django. So it's not tied into the same database updates as these custom validators up here. But as far as how you write the class, it's basically the same, right? We have a class that extends custom validator. It has a validate function that's called automatically, same as you would see up here. So there's a lot you could do with this. And what I started to realize as I was building this out, I was tying myself a lot to, well, this is what NetBox is giving me. So I started to question that and think, well, maybe I want to validate what NetBox hasn't given me. So in this case, I've got a VLAN change freeze validator, and a lot's going on here. But in simple terms, because custom validators are just Python, anything that you can do in Python, you can do in a custom validator. So I'm going to make a request to an external data source, right? So that's maybe a data source that changes frequently, or it's a data source you don't have access to ingest. So I'm going to make a request to an external API, and it is running on the same VM, right? But in theory, this would be external. And I'm going to say, hey, this VLAN that I'm trying to update, is it at a site that is under a change freeze? And that's something that's outside of my control, right? And I want to keep this inventory management in line with what's been deployed to my site. So if something's under a change freeze, I don't want to be able to update my inventory and have them get out of sync. So when I look in my JSON over here, this is my freeze.json. And what I've done is I've set Akron to be completely under change freeze and Albany to be under change freeze for just the 100 and 200 VLAN IDs. And this data, by the way, is I'm using the NetBox community seed data, which populated a ton of data all throughout NetBox. So really high five to whoever put that together. And just for the purposes of this lab, I'm using Open Policy Agent, which has a REST API for using any external data you want to feed to it and any policies that you want to check against. So in this case, I'm checking with the site that I'm passing in for this VLAN. Is it either one of those? And if so, does one of the VLANs match? If this array is empty, then it's the entire site is under change freeze. So I'm going to come into my VLANs. And like I said, I have been working on this, so I hope this demo still works. But this is a VLAN 100, and it is at the Akron site. So I'm going to change this role, save, and here we are. So now we're back in my change freeze validator. And yep, this is failing validation because Akron is under change freeze, right? So we get my error right here. It's under a change freeze. If I take Akron out, right, and I'll update my change freeze, come to my bash window, sh, update change freeze data. Hopefully this works. Now I'll save it again. Great. So I got past that validator, got past all these, and now it updated. Right. So if you have external data that's constantly changing, unpredictable, you can use just Python, the way you would normally use Python to make API requests to fetch that data, or whatever else. It could be, custom logic living somewhere else. But yeah, you can go pretty nuts with it. And that's what I like about this is anything you could think of, anything you could do in Python, you can do in custom validators. That's it.
That's awesome, Colin. Amazing to see the two examples, and I love seeing Open Policy Agent in there. That's something from a previous life of mine. I didn't see any questions come in, but if you do have questions, drop them in the chat, and we will have time throughout the call, so we can either answer them there, or we can come back after Michael's talk and have Colin answer some of them directly. And if you are going to be at Cisco Live, as Colin said, go and check out the walk-in lab, I think you said it was.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So look for Colin's name, go and find it. Michael has a question. Michael, you're up next. You might as well ask it.
Yeah. Hi, Michael here. Cool stuff. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think I want to dive deeper into it. Is there any documentation, blog article about this to read? Go on there.
Yeah, there's plenty of documentation. It's in the NetBox community documentation. It goes into all the different validator options and how to wire in a validator. So it's all spelled out there.
And I see that Rich.
So I didn't find it yet.
Yeah, I see that Rich has just shared the link in the chat as well for anybody who's curious. All right. Well, since you've already come off mute, Michael, we might as well jump straight into it. Our next talk today is Michael Schwarzkopf. He's going to be talking about interacting with Cisco devices around device configurations. Michael and I spoke about this a little bit in Slack beforehand, and Michael is one of these guys who's always working on 20 interesting things at once. So the biggest problem was actually choosing one of them to come and talk about, but we decided on this one. Michael's been in the NetBox community for a long time. If you hang around in the NetDev Slack, you'll see Michael's name pop up there relatively often. But anyway, that's my introduction. Michael, take it away.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Well, I've been into NetBox for quite some time. I'm a trainer, I'm doing trainings, I'm developing things for customers and doing a lot of things with NetBox and Ansible. And the origin for this work I've been doing was the question, how is it the best way to configure devices based on the information stored in NetBox? I'd like to use Ansible. There are, for instance, for Cisco devices and for all devices, there are a lot of modules that configure specific things. So the NTP, so the SNMP community, the host name, the interface layer 2 connection, interface layer 3, all the stuff, they're separate modules. So is it the best way to use these modules to retrieve information from NetBox and to put it out to devices? Or is it better to have to let NetBox generate the whole configuration and finally use one simple put command to put the configuration out to the device? I've been thinking a long time about this, and finally I think I found a solution to let NetBox render the config. I have the config template in some revision control system like Git, and finally have NetBox generate the config based on the information stored in NetBox and rendering the template. And immediately the next problem arose. When I have a problem, when I have an error in my template, in my NetBox configuration, what prevents me to shoot in my knee and have a mass outage of all my switches automatically? I have been seeing this several times in my life as a consultant, switching off a lot of devices, especially when using automation. So you can switch off devices automatically. And so this talk will be how to prevent this disaster, to switch to kill yourself during automation. And from Cisco, I found the nice archive command. And basically the idea is to tell Cisco device, create an archive, revert to the last archived version of the config. If I don't tell you within 2 minutes that the new configuration is okay, then put the new configuration out, activate the new configuration, and then you can start some tests. And if all tests are good, then you say, okay, now you can really activate the new configuration or take over. If you cut off your access to the device, then of course you cannot tell the device to activate the configuration or to really take over the configuration, and the device will, within 2 minutes, will revert to the old configuration. And that's what I'm gonna demonstrate. I'm gonna share my screen. Hopefully, no. I hope you can see my screen. That's my NetBox. And this is, that's my lab at home. I have a switch here. It's a small Cisco 7160L, 8 ports, and I have inline management with VLAN 10. The IP address is here. And for security reasons, for safety reasons, I still have a serial line connected to it. We will see why we need it at the moment. And this is my Ansible, which goes to NetBox, gets the rendered config, and puts it out. So the rendered config is here. And basically, here is the interface VLAN 10. I have the IP address based on the configuration in NetBox. And the iOS cd Ansible, the iOS config, the Ansible is very simple. I get the rendered config from my NetBox. That this part here, I write the config to a file locally on my Ansible device, because putting the Ansible module netput needs a local source. Before I do a copy running config to a startup config, so in any case, power off anything, you still have the old working configuration in the startup config. Then I put the new config to the device, and then I set a reload configuration terminal revert time 2. So it reverts to the old configuration, to the running config, after 2 minutes. Then I activate the new config, copy the from the flash to the running config. And then if I do not lose the connection to my device, I confirm the connection, the new configuration, which is configure confirm. Yeah. So we can do this. Ansible playbook, iOS config, and it renders a new configuration, stores it locally, and deploys it to my device. And since I didn't change anything, everything's okay. Here you see we changed the configuration and we confirmed the configuration in the end. Now, if I go to my device in NetBox and kick myself out, I disable my management interface. Now, this management VLAN 10 with the management IP address is disabled. And now I go to my playbook and generate new configuration and play out the new configuration. We will see that it gets a configuration, renders it, saves it to a local file, puts it on device, and activates it. In the log file, interface VLAN 10 is going down, change admin down, which is not good. And now we see, the next thing we see is that this task runs in timeout after 30 seconds, and my playbook, sorry, fails. And then after another 90 seconds, which is 2 minutes minus the 30 seconds, my switch recognized that it didn't get the confirmation confirm command and reverts back to the old configuration, which helps a lot if you are stupid enough kicking out yourself from the management VLAN. So this is the, after 1 minute, I get the warning, hey, please confirm the configuration or I will roll back the configuration. And since I cannot access the device anymore, after another minute, we will see the rollback. We also can see ping 192, 248, no ping at all.
It occurs to me that it's actually quite fun waiting for this to come back in a demo scenario, but it would not be very fun in real life.
Well, if it comes back in real life, this is the fun part.
That's right. Yeah, when it comes back.
If you kick out 1,000 switches in a time, that's the non-fun part. So here, rollback automatically interface VLAN 10 comes up and ping is working. I see go through the logs. Oh yes, of course. Who did switch off the management interface? I switch it on again. I save the configuration and I play out right configuration, the correct configuration, and everything's working again. And now can confirm the working condition again, the working configuration again, it's working. So this is really nice stuff. The magic behind it, if I go to switch configuration, the magic behind it is this archive. Here is the archive command, which tells the device to generate archives and to save configuration into archives. And this is included in my template. And that's, yeah. If you want to read more about this, I published the whole story on the blog on our website, sys4.de, German-based company. That's the archive command described. That's the complete playbook here with putting the new configuration that I showed you and the configure confirm finally. And this is a template, of course, including the archive command and the whole magic about the VLANs and the interfaces, which I got inspired by a blog article on NetBox Labs. Here is, oh, that's still the old code. I improved it a little bit. Yeah, good. So the magic is here, the archive, and I utilize this in my template. And when I saw that it really worked here in my device, and I was able to kick out to disable my management interface, and it revived after 2 minutes, I was very delighted, and I liked it very much, so I wanted to share it here.
Michael, that's awesome. Oh, I'm seeing myself twice. There we go. That's good. Thank you for that. Michael, could you share the blog post link in the chat for anybody who's...
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. And one other thing I want to do quickly before we move on is there was a question shared by Kate Cole, but it was only shared with host and panelists. So Kate asked, do validators run, this was to Colin's presentation, do validators run on new and change of NetBox entries? And Colin, I see you replied, but it only went to the host and the panelists. So maybe you could repeat the answer for everybody.
Yeah, so they do apply on creation and updates. And that was actually one of the early bugs I came across is I was only testing for creation and none of my updates were working. So you have to be aware of that when you're creating validators, that the same validate method gets called for create and update.
Got it. So you got to put some logic in there to ask what action am I validating?
Yeah, the way I did it was I just took a unique ID, and if I was looking up, hey, does something with this name already exist? I would compare the unique ID of that thing with the name to the thing that was being updated. If they're the same, then it's okay. If they're not the same, then right, we're creating, we're validating uniqueness. So things like that.
Cool. That makes sense. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you to our speakers this week. Thank you to Colin and thank you to Michael. Links have been shared in the chat. Back over to you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Michael. Those are great talks. So looking out for the rest of the audience out here, we'd love to hear your NetBox story. These are two great examples of different implementations, different uses of NetBox, different kind of kind of getting into the details, but the important details, and with some real life use cases for them. And so I'm sure there's lots of knowledge out there that would be great to be shared to the broader community. So if you have a story, you have something you'd like to tell, we'd love you to tell the story. If you're up for it, community calls is a great place, but it's not the only place. Some people just don't prefer the public speaking. If you'd rather do it as a blog, whether you'd like to it in other forms, we'd love to hear from you no matter what. But if you're interested in joining the community calls to speak out, let us know, and we'd love to schedule you in. So on that note, I will kind of wrap things up by reminding everyone that these are monthly calls. Obviously, the next one is scheduled for June 17th, Tuesday, June 17th, same time. We have some great speakers again next month, so looking forward to seeing you there. If we don't speak in the meantime, as a reminder, both Mark and myself are going to be at AutoCon 3 in Prague. So if you're going to be there, we'd love to see you there. And again, thank you very much, Colin and Michael, for your presentations. Very interesting. And I learned more about validators than I thought I was actually interested in. I was actually, Colin, I was very excited to see the dynamics of actually doing an external call from a validator. I had not thought of that use case. I think there's definitely food for thought under the covers there. Thanks for bringing that up. And Michael, I love the idea of saving yourself from locking yourself out of a device. I think that's a common fear out there. So that was great that you came up with a great solution for that. So both great topics. Thanks, guys, for putting the time and presenting to the group. So on that note, I'll any parting words, Mark? Anything you wanted to?
Just really quick, I just dropped the link for the June call in there. Marketing just got it done today, so go sign up now. Also, I think as of last month, they added an extra checkbox on there, so you can now just click to sign yourself up in perpetuity for the community calls, so you don't have to go and sign up every month and maybe miss some. You can opt out later, so be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Just as a last call, any questions from the audience? If anybody want to put anything in the chat at this point? If not, we'll wrap it up and we'll speak to you next month. But I don't see anything coming in. So again, thanks everyone. Have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.